This is one of the best and one of the funniest films I saw last year, and I wanted to make a video with some of my thoughts on the themes in this film and on its characters. It's been widely described as a film which makes fun of the wealthy elites. However, in my opinion, it is not just the upper echelons of society who come off bad in this film. I think society as a whole and its materialistic and narcissistic ways are made fun of. The cruise ship staff seem to be just as moronic and hungry for a higher status in society as the rich guests they are welcoming and serving on board. This environment where everyone is just trying to step over everyone else for their own benefit mirrors the current point we are at in society very well. In this story, there seems to be only one person looking for true love, the main character Carl. However, Carl is naive, insecure, and the only thing he seems to be good at is having his picture taken. And in a world ruled by powerful elites where money is everything, he is most definitely an underdog and struggles to find what he is looking for. His girlfriend Yaya has a different idea as to what a healthy relationship should look like, and we quickly see that they may not be well suited for each other. Carl struggles to pay for the sort of lifestyle that Yaya wants to live, and this makes him feel insecure. He tries to argue that they should split the bill at the restaurant, as this would make them equals, and men and women should be equal. He tries to take the moral high ground, but deep down he wishes he could provide for her. During their argument, Yaya says she's only with Carl out of convenience, until she finds a wealthy man who can provide for her. She also adds that this is for the sake of her future children, taking back the moral high ground. What Yaya says, and the way she says it, is very interesting, and it can be interpreted in a number of different ways. I do believe that women, naturally and subconsciously, feel an attraction to men with power due to the way we've evolved. However, it would be hard to argue that a conscious attraction to wealthy men isn't to some extent accompanied by a conscious attraction to materialistic wealth and a higher status in society. This would, however, mean that Yaya would no longer have the moral high ground, especially given that she has a boyfriend who is willing to do a lot to try and keep her happy. Yaya expresses this to Carl casually enough for it to not scare Carl away, which, if what she is saying is true, is part of her plan. But she says it seriously enough so that when she does end up leaving for a richer man, Carl can't say she never warned him. Because of this, and the way Yaya behaves in the first half of the film, we may at first think that she is being 100% honest when she said she is only with Carl until she finds a richer man. However, personally, I think that although a big part of Yaya does want a rich lifestyle, I think a part of her likes Carl, and she is angry that she can't have both. Carl doesn't even question Yaya's motives, and his determination to win her over is so strong that we begin to question if he is doing it because he really loves her, or whether he is just trying to prove to himself that he can take care of her. In other words, we don't know if he is being more naive or more insecure. On the cruise ship, Carl and Yaya slowly get to know the other guests, and we realise they all have a few things in common. They have all reached such a high and respectable position in society, seemingly by chance, and without providing much of a benefit to society. They also seem to lack any desirable characteristics in general, and are oblivious to the world around them. The Russian oligarch Dmitry has made his wealth by, in his own words, selling shit. Elderly couple Clementine and Winston have made their fortune from the arms industry, something they obviously feel guilty about, as they give a very abstract answer as to what it is they do. Carl and Yaya are on the cruise because Yaya is a social influencer, something that is regarded as so useless it is commonly joked at as not being a proper job. Finally, there is Yarmo, who works in the tech industry, and although he has made his wealth in possibly the least questionable way out of the guests, we see that his social skills are so bad that he, as a millionaire, can't even find a partner to join him on a luxury cruise. Although they are not necessarily bad people, they are not the type of individuals who should be at the pinnacle of society and be looked up to by everyone else. The cruise ship staff, however, do exactly this. And during their team talk led by the head of staff Paula, we find out that they have no values or way of doing things. They are just there to do whatever the cruise ship guests tell them to do. The staff do whatever they are told, simply because the guests have a higher level of wealth and power, which they also dream of obtaining one day. We see that the situation on the cruise ship mirrors our society today in the sense that everyone is motivated by power and money and idolizes those at the top who have it. Meanwhile, the rich and powerful elites are incompetent and they have done little for the good of society whilst obtaining their wealth and with it. There are two people on this ship, however, who seem to understand this situation and be conscious of it. The first being the captain. The captain sees the narcissistic and materialistic mind state of both his crew members as well as the guests. He He also sees the guests for who they are, and the fake nature of the whole situation, in which they pretend to be better than everyone else, who in turn treat them as God sent, simply because they are wealthy. The captain can see that the proverbial ship is going to sink, and this has made him depressed and lose belief in the purpose of the cruise ship, and this is why he largely remains in his cabin, drinking alcohol. Dmitry, the Russian oligarch, is also conscious of the state of things. We first see this when he describes his own job without any pride and with a great deal of humility. He also shows that he is aware that his wife is with him mainly due to his wealth. Dmitry and the captain bond with each other through their consciousness of what is wrong with society. The scene during which they lock themselves in the main room and use a microphone to recite their most thoughtful quotes to the rest of the ship was one of my favourite scenes. The guests seemed to be frightened, in part by what they were hearing, and I thought this scene showed excellently their ignorant nature, as their reaction to hearing real and meaningful truths was horror and shock. I felt that Dimitri's and the captain's bond was also really heartwarming, as although they had completely opposite political beliefs, they came together to find a common ground and to search for the truth. It was also interesting to see that Dmitry, who came from a socialist country, was a capitalist, and the captain, who came from a capitalist country, was a communist. I think this is something that we often see when people blame the problems and injustices of their lives and of society on the system they live under. Personally, I think human nature is too complicated to expect a monetary system to solve all or even most of our problems. Eventually the ship, which may be seen as a metaphor for society, ends up sinking after it is attacked by third world pirates. A threat which, given how much wealth was on the cruise ship, could have been easily prepared for, and as far as we know, the captain went down with the ship. In the second half of the film, we follow a bunch of the survivors who end up on a seemingly uninhabited island. The tables have now turned, as we see a change in the power dynamics. Abigail, who was a cleaner on the ship and one of the lowest ranking members of staff, is now head of the tribe, as she is the only one who is able to effectively hunt and provide food. Abigail takes a liking to Carl, who spends the nights with her in exchange for food. Now that Carl is receiving attention from other women, Yaya begins to suddenly notice him again, and she feels jealous. This may not necessarily mean she likes Carl, but she at least likes the attention he was giving her. Although it may seem as though Carl is getting his revenge on Yaya for her behaviour on the cruise ship, I think Carl's decision to sleep with Abigail had different motives. I think that, ironically, Carl was so desperate to be that man who provides for Yaya that even if it meant sleeping in the same bed as another woman every night, he would do it. And in this way, he was finally able to provide for her. I think Abigail is a great character whose story shows how power can corrupt an individual. Given her position on the cruise ship and her quiet nature, we could easily assume she is humble and harmless. However, with time, she realizes her power as the leader of the tribe, and this corrupts her. There is one scene on the island which I felt was a bit out of place, and it didn't fit in with the rest of the story. This was the scene in which the donkey was killed. I thought it was strange that a new source of food didn't at least temporarily change the power dynamics of the tribe. However, I then realized that this scene was part of the foreshadowing of the final scene of the film. During the course of the film, we see flies hovering over Yaya many times. We also see flies hovering over the donkey. And I believe in the final scene, Abigail's desire to hold on to her power was so strong that it compelled her to kill Yaya in a similar way that the donkey was killed. Abigail didn't want Yaya to tell everyone else that they had a way of escaping, because she wanted to continue being the tribe leader, and this is why she killed her. We could even speculate that Abigail knew that the island had other inhabitants, and that this is why she offered to go on a walk with Yaya, to make sure that if she does stumble upon the resort, she doesn't make it back. I don't think this is far-fetched, as we later see a beach vendor casually walking nearby their campsite, and we realise that the island may in fact be a tourist hotspot with lots of people on it, something that Abigail may have known. Carl sensed something was wrong as soon as Abigail offered to go with Yaya, but he wasn't quite sure what it was. He eventually realised that Abigail could only have bad intentions, and he races dramatically through the bushes with an urgent look on his face, not slowing down even though the bushes are cutting his face. He is running to save his lover's life, however by this point it is too late. This ending really got to me because throughout the whole film we see tragedies and bad things happening constantly, but from a humorous perspective, which left me feeling that although things are bad, everything will be okay. However, in the end everything is not okay, and the tragedy of the film catches up to you. Yaya doesn't give much away, and it is not clear if she ever liked Carl. But we do see that she is not completely heartless when she offers Abigail a job, and I did also notice that her demeanour towards the end of the film seemed to have changed a bit. She seemed to have embraced Abigail and the whole situation. I think we could even speculate that her overall perspective on life may have changed, as she seemed more at peace, and just before her death she goes on a walk, which is a reflective thing to do. The triangle of sadness is made of people's frown lines, which shows their sadness. And in this film, everyone was searching for happiness in the wrong places, when instead they should have looked at their own triangle of sadness and simply got rid of it by changing what's behind it, which was their mind state that they will find happiness in wealth and power.